All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Patrick O'Halloran, and I'm a product specialist with Escape. I'm here with Brian Thomas, a principal solutions architect, and we're going to be talking about Data Vault Demystified today. Before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about Webscape and a little bit about data automation. So Webscape as a company has been around 20 years. We started as a consulting company in New Zealand, building data warehouses. And because of a lot of repetitive tasks we were doing, we came up with several tools to help speed up that process. And those tools became very, very, very productive. Several customers started asking if they could buy those tools. And at that point, Webscape stopped being a consulting company and began as a software company. We've got about 1,200 customers around the world. We're not in any particular industry or vertical. We're in education, manufacturing, government, pharmaceutical, finance, pretty much everything you can think of. We've got customers in that space. And the main thing we provide is 8x developer output. Developers are able to produce things much, much, much faster. And I'll talk about exactly why. But it's not just I can produce things faster. It's I can produce things in a way that when I need to make modifications, when I need to add new sources, when I need to do things like that, that work also is much, 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 much faster than hand coding or doing things manually. So why data automation? Costs. People think cost. Obviously, labor costs are part of that. Lost opportunity cost of not having, certainly a risk is not having your data warehouse project work out well. Risks include things like knowledge leaving, the consultant coming in, maybe doing the work right, maybe not doing the work right, but then leaving with all the knowledge in their head. Complexity. Data Vault certainly adds a layer of complexity to develop data warehouses, data vaults, but also new technologies, whether it's JSON files, web APIs, new systems such as Databricks are coming out. A lot of that makes data warehouse projects much, much more complex than they were 10 years ago, and just the sheer volume of data as well. The urgency, we certainly saw with the pandemic, how companies' needs can change very, very quickly. Automation is pretty much the only way to be able to respond as fast as possible to changing business needs, to get the intelligence and information in the hands of the decision makers as fast as you can. And then agility, because with data warehouse automation, you are working at a more abstract level. You tell it what you want to do, not how you want to do it. You can develop things much, much, much faster. I can sit down with a data analyst and come up with a quick prototype. They can use it. They can use their tools, Tableau, Power BI, whatever it is they're doing analysis with, query the data, and maybe they need a transform added. Maybe they need to have null values removed. Maybe they need a calculated column added. I can do all those things literally in minutes right in front of them. And they can then immediately see the results of that work. So what does data automation do? Whether it's data warehouses, data lakes, data vaults, data lakehouses, data marts, faster, happier end users. You're working closer with the business. You're producing results much, much faster for them, and they're getting the information they need. Reduced cost with limited risk. You're producing things much faster. You're producing a much more solid product that's got greater consistency and supportability. If you do need to make modifications, you don't need to find out where something is, check it out, read it. One of the things I hated as a programmer was debugging my code, but one thing even worse than that was debugging someone else's code. With data warehouse automation, everything's developed consistently and is very, very supportable. Easy to evolve, expand, and port to new platforms. We had a large customer in the Midwest, insurance company. They had been using Teradata for several years using Webscape. And they asked, what is it going to take to move our data warehouse from Teradata to Snowflake? Now, there's a lot of aspects of a project like that. But the technical part of how do I replicate my data warehouse? How do I create all the pipelines that move data? All the assorted scripts and functions and things like that. They were able to take, I think it was about 2,000 objects they had in Teradata, and in literally 40 hours, they had all those objects and all the pipelines and everything set up in Snowflake. And then documented and compliant. Again, because of the consistency of development, because we're capturing metadata as you're doing work, you'll see that we have complete documentation. So I will tell you that there is a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. If you have any questions, feel free to type those in. And with that, I will turn this over to Brian to talk about demystifying Data Vault.
Well, thank you, Patrick. My screen shared. Okay, so Data Vault. So you're here to find out about Data Vault and how to demystify it. So I'm going to start off by explaining that Wearescape is actually comprised of two different tools. One is Wearescape 3D, and the other one is Wearescape Red. Now, 3D, I'm going to show you in a minute, is how you can take a model-driven approach to building your data warehouse, especially building your data vault. Now, Wearescape Red is the tool that does the physical work, that creates the code. You create your pipelines in there. It'll create your physical objects. It'll promote from dev to test to prod, that kind of thing. And so let me just go over this Wearescape Red overview diagram that kind of shows how data flows through Wearescape. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to 3D. And I'm going to show you how you can just really build your 3D, using 3D, build your data vault model very, very quickly. So now this is Wearescape Red. And so we start over here on the left. This is your data sources. So you can extract from pretty much any kind of a source, a traditional database platform, XML, JSON, text file, even web APIs, really anything. On the far right, this is your BI tools. This is your Yellowfin, your Looker, your Tableau, your Power BI. We don't do anything in that space. Instead, Wearescape does the heavy lifting between those two. So we start with extraction of the source. So we take the data from your source and we land it up into your target platform. So if your target is Snowflake or Oracle or SQL Server, we land the data first into your platform. We make a one-to-one copy of these tables or files, and we call this our load layer. And the next thing we do is we take that data that is landed into your target platform and we start applying rules to that data. Now, these rules could be as simple as just joining a couple of tables together, or maybe it's something very complex like you're building a budgeting algorithm that has to go through multiple serial calculations. But the idea is to prepare the data using what we call stage tables. So in Data Vault, this is your soft transformations and adding in your hash keys. That's all that you do for Data Vault. Then once you have your data prepared, then you land it into your data foundation layer. Now for Data Vault, this is your raw Data Vault layer. Now Wearescape also has the capability to build an operational data store, a data lake, a third normal form, or even a conform dimensional model here. We're just showing you some of the options that you have. You don't have to build all of these options. Now, once again, you can then apply additional business transformations. Now, these are your hard transformations. These are the real meat of building out your data warehouse. And ultimately, you will have a business vault on top of that for Data Vault. And Wearescape is one of the few tools that actually helps you build your star schema on top of your business vault and your raw vault. So, and that's where we stop, and the dashboard users would connect to that warehouse from there and pull the information out. So now while you're building all of these objects, we're actually capturing everything in metadata. This is how we're able to generate code, generate dependency diagrams. You're able to do impact analysis. A lot of that magic happens because of the metadata. Now we also have a self-documenting feature. This is one of my favorites. At the end of each development cycle, a developer can just push a button and generate that documentation. Now, this is technical documentation that shows pretty much how the data warehouse is built, and you can also enhance it to include some business context as well. And finally, we provide a pipeline tool, which we call our scheduler. It's just an orchestration service that manages the flows, the jobs, the dependencies, sends out email alerts and things like that. You can also integrate with an enterprise scheduler if you have one of those. Now, from a high level perspective, there are three components. The first one is the developer interface that I'm going to show you. This gets installed on developer machines or on a VM in the cloud. This is a client piece. We're not a SaaS-based tool, especially with Data Vault. We found that if you have a SaaS-based tool, you are constrained to that definition of what a Data Vault is. So with Wearescape being a client-based tool, it frees you up to put together what you need to meet your business requirements. So the second part is the metadata database that we have here. So this sits on a central location on a server or a VM of some kind. You will have for it's either SQL Server or Postgres, this metadata database, and you will have one per environment. So if you have dev, test, and prod, you will have 3 different environments, 3 different metadatas. We help you promote from dev to test to prod. Now, this third piece is what we call our scheduler, and it is a service that sits on a central location as well, on a server or a VM of some kind. Now, I hesitate to say this because I'm a 20-year DBA, but you can have the scheduler and the metadata on the same box. The reason for this is the scheduler is a very lightweight piece. We're actually not doing the transformations. We're just orchestrating the flow. That transformation logic is running on your target platform. Webscape generates SQL blocks that run there. So now let me show you how you can build your data vault inside Webscape Red. So Webscape Red by itself is an acceleration tool. So we can come in and you can browse your data warehouse. We can browse connections to ADLS Gen 2 APIs as 3 buckets. Whatever you need to, we can browse a standard database. So I have here standard database connection. This is SQL Server. You can look at the columns. You can look at row counts. I can display data. All of this is live. Now we can take and create that first level, that load table. So let me quickly build a load table. We just take and drag this across, and then automation kicks in. So Webscape Red is an acceleration tool. It has automation at multiple levels. We automate naming standards. We automate target locations, data type mappings, all this kind of stuff built in via wizards and templates. So now I'm going to do this with my default is PowerShell, but I can come in here and override this and say I want to create a Python. So let me do that, create a Python script to load this. We have action scripts so that you can do multiple things like truncate tables and things like that inside the tool. I'm going to go ahead and create and load this. So while this is running, what it's doing is it's taking the data from my local SQL server and extracting it, putting it in a file, and uploading it to the cloud, and then loading it directly into Snowflake in this case. So you can see here is the create table statement. We grabbed any comments that were in the source system, pulled them along for the documentation. Then we did extracted the data from the database, put it in a file, and then uploaded it, and then used the copy command to copy it into Snowflake and using file formats. So this is how it works. It would have done something similar with an S3 bucket, except it wouldn't copy it down. It would just take it from the file and load it across. So now if we come back, the next step is stage table. So let me quickly build a stage table that's going to support our raw vault. As I said, the stage tables at this level are for the ability to put the hash keys in it, really change data types and hash keys. So let me find that we just created the load customers. I'm going to create a stage table for it. Okay, I already have that named, so I'll name it 2. Stage customers 2. Now notice we have Data Vault stage. Because I set this, we're going to then create it understands hash keys. So the first thing it says is, what is my hub hash going to be? And I'm going to say it's going to be based on customer ID. I'm only creating one. I'm not going to create a link. And I'm going to take everything else and I'm going to create a change hash with it. And so once that's done, we have this. Now I can come back in, change my filter from load table to stage table. You'll notice we have the hub hash and the change hash here. So now I can take that stage table and where did it end up? Stage customers. So I can take this, drag it across, and create a hub for it. So we have customer ID, and we're going to call this hub customers 2 just to make sure. And I'm going to rebuild it, build the update. Because we have wizards to walk you through building this, it's very easy. The customer ID is already set, and we're going to quickly build a hub. And you can see it's the hash key and the business key, and that's all that's in there. We can use that same stage table because we put a change hub, a change hash, and I can do the same thing and build a medium rate of change satellite here. So we're going to do the same thing, build it very quickly for you to prototype, as Patrick was saying, and put together a raw data vault. So in fact, I can come in here and I can do an impact analysis, track back diagram, and we can see right here how it got there. Customers table, load table, stage table, and hub. And I can even look at this and look at my links, and we can see some things that are going on here. So I already had it connected to a link already, and so that's why that showed up. But what this is a bottom-up approach. So if we go back and look at this architecture, we build our load table, build our stage table, and build our hubs, links, and satellites. Now we developed a second product called Warescape 3D for you to take a bottom-up, a top-down, model-driven approach versus the bottom-up from red. So now this is Warescape 3D, and what we do is we create source models, we create logical data vault designs. From data vault designs, we can rapidly prototype a raw data vault, and then we use automation to build those load and stage tables for us, and ultimately export it to red, build a business vault on top of that, and then ultimately have a star schema available. So can't show you how to do all these things today, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how we can take a connection and reverse engineer it. So we're going to take this connection to that same sales database, and we're going to create a source model for this. And I can set filtering options. I can say I don't want views or system tables. I can even exclude things like I want no real system files at all in there. And then we can do a full discovery, which includes referential integrity constraints, and I can even do a full data profiling inside the tool. So now when this is done, we end up with this nice model, a nice ERD. I'm lucky I have relationships here. We have a button to derive those relationships. If we don't have it, we can even come in and look at our profiling results in a graph. And so when we see that, we can see average character counts, distinct value counts, null percentages, things like that. So you can utilize that in designing your data vault. Now I'm going to create a data vault design, which is a logical data vault. That's the next step. I can take this and just very quickly create one. Now these are the attribute types that are built in. So I'm going to just skip this, and we're going to take a blank slate, and now I can just drag some things across that we looked at. Now I can come in here and do the official data vault, create entities, add attributes, and really design it from scratch. But for this demonstration today, I'm just going to take a bit of a shortcut, if you'll forgive me, and I can come in and create customers, orders details, products, however you need, and then you put them in here. So ultimately this ends up, and I'll show you what this looks like when we create it. So this is one that I took the time and marked whether things are. If we come look at this, you can come in and mark whether it is a business key or a medium satellite, volatility high, medium, low, all of that. And then we have a button down here that we create our data vault. So just like that, I can create a data vault from this 1.0, and and it will take those attribute types that I've listed here and create attributes from that. Now, the key to Wearscape 3D is it's a model-driven approach and it is rules-based. So what we have are model conversion rules that take things from a source model to a data vault design, from a data vault design to a data vault, from a data vault to a load-in stage. So this particular set of model conversion rules understands hash keys, understands satellites. So it will go through and do all those little steps that you would otherwise be doing yourself. It's doing it inside the tool in a couple of minutes, what might take you weeks. And so this is why this actually is the acceleration to the acceleration tool. So if you look here, we have all of these items that were created. Pink are links, blues are hubs, and yellows are satellites. So we have created a medium rate of change and a high rate of change for customers. So that's how it works. If you don't like it, you can come back to the model that we created and you can come in, we can change some attributes and change it to something else and regenerate your data vault model again, and it will come up with something different. And then you run a different set of model conversion rules and you end up with not just your raw vault, but we build out the load tables necessary for it and the stage tables so that everything gets put together for you. Again, weeks worth of work in a couple of clicks. Then we take that, and this is a logical model. So if we look here, you can actually see things like this change hash says TGT. So it has taken the data types by default from your source system. And so now we need to tell it where we're going to implement it. So the next step would be to prepare this for red. And when we do that, we end up with a model something like this. And so now no longer does it say TGT, but I told it snowflake. So these are snowflake data types. And then ultimately we would take this and push it over to Wearscape red. So let's go back to Wearscape red and let me show you what it produced when I did that earlier. So we end up with our raw vault. So this is our raw vault with load tables for each one of those sources and stage tables for everything so that we end up with one for customers, employees, phones, everything that we need. And we have our hubs, links, satellites. So this would have taken just a few minutes to push it across. And when it does that, it creates the objects and it writes the code. So if we look at this hub, we can see that we have this update for customers hub. And this is what the code looks like. It is, well, truthfully, this is better code than I ever wrote when I was doing data warehousing. Running around with my hair on fire, really did not have the time to put documentation in and inline comments and stuff like that. But the nice thing is this code works first immediately, and it works the first time through. So you know it because it's built on templates. So the final thing is our documentation. So while you're building all of this, it's documenting everything behind the scenes. So I can come up and I can create documentation. With a click of a button, I can generate the documentation specifically for this warehouse that we just built, the raw vault. And while it's, as soon as this completes building the documentation, I wanted to show you one more thing, because this just shows the raw vault. If we had gone through the processing of the business vault, it would create that as well. This business vault gets created, and these are the current views and the history views gets created for every single satellite. because Data Vault is insert only. And then ultimately you can build your star schema on top of that. And I have a dimension here that was built from our Data Vault. And so if I come down and do an impact analysis, that trackback diagram, we can see that this customer dimension came from a new stage table, which joined the hub and that current satellite view that sits on top of the medium rate of change table, which came from that stage table that we built, which came from the load table. So all of this got put together inside the tool, and then we can display the documentation, and this is what it looks like. We have user documentation and technical documentation. So we can do things like look at that presentation layer. Let's look at the dimensions, and we can see this is that customer dimension that was put together, and we can see where it came from. This is the source and this source column. And oh, this was a type 2 dimension as well. The contact name and contact title are actually slowly changing fields in here. So we can look at that. We can see that trackback diagram that was put together here. We have information that it was related to. We can even see the update script for this type 2 dimension. If we scroll down, we can see the fields where the tracked columns, that's where you know it's a type 2 dimension, the contact name and contact title. So all of this was done inside the tool. We even have a glossary that shows every single column in the data warehouse. So this is the power of Warescape in accelerating building your data vault from scratch all the way through your star schema that you can do inside the tool. So that's what I have, Patrick.
Yeah, you finished?
You have the questions slide.
Okay.
We can
I'll
show
remind everybody that
you.
there is a Q&A button. I will share my screen again.
So if you
briefly.
have any questions, go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so if you there's a Q&A button
So
at
if
the
you have any
bottom.
questions,
Can you hear me?
send an email to moreinfo@warescape.com or
Did
go
you hear me?
to warescape.com/request the demo, and we can give you a full demonstration on this capability, because this is an amazing tool for building your data vault. And so,
Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
anything else, Patrick? If not,
I
looks like
can't.
we're at the end of the hour. I don't see any questions typed in our Q&A. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.